Good evening, and welcome to another revolutionary episode of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your rebellious and remonstrative host, Voice of Doom. Good evening. I am going to do another screed. Made some notes, which is always a bad sign. I'm sure you'll be bored to tears. But I wanted to do a little self-promotion a bit. First of all, this is my last show, so I will no longer be on the YouTube because, no, not really. I will keep doing this crap because I like it. But what I was going to say is I made a playlist that you might want to look at because there's so many videos now and at least 90% of them aren't that bad. But there's 10% that are. And so I kind of picked out a few of my favorites. Not the best quality, some of them, but the first one and a bunch of ones I really like that kind of give you an idea of where I'm at, and the ones I kind of really enjoy watching over and over again. So I put the best of Diatribes, Voice of Doom's greatest hits on a playlist, so I'll promote that. But I wanted to get on this subject of the day and get the idea I had out ahead of everybody else. I wanted to talk about protest in a general sense because it's an interesting subject and it's been in the forefront of our society over the last couple of years. And it has permeated throughout the globe. It's always been there, but I mean, it's really bad. You think America's bad, you go to Sri Lanka. They will shoot you if you protest right now because they're going through some crap. But there's protests everywhere. There's protests even in China. And they don't deal with them very well. But I'll talk about the history of protest real quick. And you can find this out yourself. I don't know why I bothered, but this world developed from protests. Many protests have changed the course of history, and many protests have failed miserably. I'll give you an example of one that changed history. Protestant Reformation. Where do you think they got the word Protestant from? From protest. Martin Luther. 1517, I believe, he posted his 96th thesis, if I remember correctly. And that changed the world because it created a schism in the church. And many sects, not S-E-X, but sects, splintered off from the Catholic Church, and some were ostracized, and some were vilified, and some were attacked with sticks and staves, and some sailed off to another world called America, or what would be. So that's how that all went down. History in a nutshell. See how I can get it down to 30 seconds. What other major protests caused things? Well, there was a Pennsylvania mutiny of 1783. Did you know that? Soldiers after the Revolutionary War wanted to get paid. And they were bitching, and they were right up in the politician's face, and Alexander Hamilton said, okay, we'll do something, we'll try, we'll figure something. They went right back in the building and said, let's figure something out. They weren't fooling around, these soldiers, 400 of them. The politicians ended up making provisions for their own safety, and they moved the capital from Pennsylvania to D.C. eventually because they realized they can't trust on any one state to protect them. So they need their own little enclave. So I found that interesting when I was browsing through the crap. The Haymarket Affair, 1886. Labor demonstration. They wanted to have an 8-hour workday. Bombs went off. It was a mess. The shirtwaist strike of 1909, mostly Jewish women in the garment district of probably New York. It's the first women-led uprising. They were striking for better working conditions. And we'll go on through history, civil rights protests, Vietnam protests. Remember when Kent State happened, it was a protest, and if you think things were bad today, things were bad in 1970, okay? Because there were people that had a bad attitude on both sides, and sooner or later the right-wing cracker white supremacist Mr. Bobo decides he's had it with these hippies, and he starts shooting, and then everybody else starts shooting. And if it had happened today, people would have a cow. Bunch of peaceful, mostly peaceful protesters, no more peaceful or unpeaceful than what we have today, were shot in cold blood. They were unarmed. 4 of them died, I believe, but I don't know all the details, but you should check into it. It's interesting. If you look on the internet, you got a whole timeline, all kinds of stuff you can find. Stonewall, 1969. Gays were tired of being treated like second-class citizens. They rioted. Solidarity, Poland. It started the downfall of the Eastern Bloc, okay? Alexander Plot's demonstration, that would be around 91, led to the fall of the Berlin Wall. Tiananmen Square, they tried to protest once and for all in China, failed miserably. China cracked down. Now, let's go through a few things. How do you protest? You protest by having a rally, having a march, having a vigil, having a picket, having a civil disobedience, having a ceremony, having a motorcade, distributing information, having a symbolic display, having an attack, having a riot, having a strike, having a boycott, doing community activism, or filing a lawsuit. I don't know which one of those has the most impact. Probably the lawsuit. Just a little quick summary of how you can protest. You can have a literal protest, symbolic and sensory, sit-ins or demonstrations and chanting and songs and something like you're seeing right now. You can have a solemn protest, prayer vigil. You can have a conventional protest where you go through the legal channels to say, not in my backyard. Don't want any of those oil derricks in my view. Movement in space, parades, marches. They've done wonders. Gandhi, Dr. Reverend Martin Luther. Civil disobedience, blocking and obstructing, sit-ins, blocking people, letting people not work. We've seen a lot of that, haven't we? And collective violence, which is the other extreme. It's like we're out to have a riot. We don't want to have a peaceful protest. We're going to go in there with full knowledge that we're going to cause trouble. And I'll give you a few foreign words. Rasta Roko is Hindi and means to block traffic with your body. So I guess that guy who stood in front of the tank in the Tiananmen Square in the 90s was definitely a Rasta Roko. Lebenslauter, German, means classical activist group. It's a group of people that take their classical cellos and oboes out to the demonstrations and activate. They do their activities. And Europe's always more classy than America. They always got more interesting stuff going on. So that's protest in a nutshell. Now I'll give you my idea. And the fact that nobody's thought of it yet shows me just how bad the government is and how bad the conservative side is and how bad the MAGA people are and how bad everybody is, that they can't even think of the obvious. It's So obvious. So here it is. I'll tell you what to do. You won't see this, but by the time you see it, you'll go, man, we should have listened to him. We have protesters who are obstructing the neighborhood of justices who are trying to do what the protesters want them to do. Okay. We have protesters here and there. We have people like Waters, miserable shrew, telling people to get in politicians' faces if they're out to dinner and don't let them do anything. Okay. Now, the conservatives have a bad habit. And that is they always want to do things by the book, and they always want to look like they're genteel with so much integrity that they would never stoop to the level of the D's or the P's or the Antifas or the whatevers. Now, as this Holder idiot said, you gotta kick them when they're down. Now, they went up to various politicians and said, what do you think of people obstructing these justices' lives? And people like Warren and people like Omar and people like, God help us, whoever else, AOC and DipOC and GeekyC and Schumer and Pelosi are all, that's peaceful protest, that's in the Constitution, that's their right. Okay, you should already know what to do. All you MAGAs and all you ultra MAGAs and all you super ultra MAGAs and all you tea partiers and tea baggers and tea potters should band together and go to their houses. And I don't even care what you protest. It's a potpourri. It's a cornucopia of things you can protest. Just protest their existence. I mean, protest their existence. We don't want you. Get out. Leave. Get like 500 people at Schumer's house and 500 people at AOC's house and 500 people at Omar's house and 500 people at Warren's house and 500 people at Pelosi's house and 500 people at Denny Hoyer's house and 500 people at the other squadron's house and 500 people at every house and every prosecutor. And freaking lady said, oh, how dare you come to my neighborhood and question me? Some prosecutor. Sickening. And have 500 people at this Patrice Cullors' house. 10,000 people at her house. Because that was a big scam. And then listen to them whine. Listen to them whine and say, this is outrageous. This is unacceptable. We can't have people at my house. You watch what happens. But you're not going to do it. And you're not fit to lead. So bring on the conflagration. Because a Republican sweep is going to accomplish nothing, because you can't even think of that simple idea. Can't even come up with that. Well, it's too bad that I'm the only one that knows anything around here. That's really a shame. But I think I got some good stuff in there. So I'm going to really like this. I'm going to put this on my Hall of Fame. Oh, Moscato. A sweet red wine served chilled. And I will bid you adieu and go out and rebel. Go out and be civilly disobedient. I think that self-immolation is kind of stupid because you never really get to see the effect of what you did because you're all burnt up. So, seems like a rather wasteful way of protesting. But people think it's dramatic, so you light yourself on fire, that makes a point, I guess. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. I'll talk more about protests as the riots become more embroiled, as the riots progress, and as we all kind of go at each other's throats over the next 6 months. I'm sure we'll see plenty of chances to talk about protest and disobedience and riots and mayhem and malaise. Yeah, that's it. Okay, I'm done. Goodbye.